I feel like I owe everybody an apology. For months, maybe even a full year, I've come out here and spoke as Roman Reigns, and I said a lot of things. You know, I said that I'd be here every single week. I said I'd be a fighting champion. I said I was going to be consistent, and I said I was going to be a workhorse, but that's all lies. It's a lie because the reality is my real name is Joe, and I've been living with leukemia for 11 years. And unfortunately, it's back. And because the leukemia is back, I cannot fulfill my role. I can't be that fighting champion. And I'm gonna have to relinquish the Universal Championship. And I'm not gonna lie, I'll take every prayer you can send my way, but I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm not looking for you to feel bad for me. Because I have faith. When I was 22 years old, I was diagnosed with this. And very quickly, I was able to put it in remission. But I'm not gonna lie, that was the hardest time of my life. I didn't have a job. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a home. And I had a baby on the way. And football was done with me. But you wanna know who gave me a chance? The team that gave me a chance was the WWE. And when I finally made it to the main roster and I was on the road, they put me in front of all of you, the WWE Universe. And to be honest, y'all have made my dreams come true. And it didn't matter if you cheered me. It didn't matter if you booed me. You've always reacted to me, and that is the most important thing. And for that, I have to say thank you so much. But I want to make one thing clear. By no means is this a retirement speech. Because after I'm done whooping leukemia's ass once again, I'm coming back home. And when I do, it's not going to just be about titles and being on top. No, it's about a purpose. I am coming back because I want to show all of you, the whole world, I want to show my family, my friends, my children, and my wife that when life throws a curveball at me, I am the type of man that will stand in that batter's box. I will crowd the plate, I will choke up, and I will swing for the fences every single time because I will beat this and I will be back, so you will see me very, very soon. Once again, thank you so much. God bless you, and I love you. Believe that.
Welcome to the JM Report. I am your host, IAmGoodOlJM, coming to you from CSB Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling, and what is probably best described as one of the most emotional weeks inside of pro wrestling history, as there was a lot to cover. There was a lot of ground to get to, and got a couple of pay-per-views coming up within, well, there's one this Sunday. And then just next Saturday will be probably considered the most controversial one of all time as far as WWE is concerned. But, well, I was trying to do a little opening bit here. Maybe I can still can after the fact because the Adobe Audition here that I use, it's recording me, obviously, but like a third-party source, for some reason, it doesn't do it, or at least it's not working today. And depending how things work out for me afterwards, maybe I can still put it up. Hopefully I can. In relations to Roman Reigns' announcement this past Monday night on Raw, and it hit home to a lot of people. I mean, I think there was more people that didn't see it coming, let alone prepared to what he had to say. For those who are unaware, Roman Reigns came out as Joe Anawani to address the audience and basically worldwide, and share a very personal story of what's been going on. Let me backtrack here just a little bit, as there were reports over last weekend of Roman Reigns missing out on live events, and rumors began circulating that it was due to possible injuries, physical injuries. And there was no confirmations other than speculation. Even PW Insider and or Dave Meltzer said as such. And well, it turns out that those reports or even speculations were all wrong, as Roman Reigns would come out, or Joe, and address that he's been battling leukemia for the past 11 years of his life. And it receded 11 years ago. Well, let me rephrase that. He was diagnosed 11 years ago. He fought it to a point where it receded, and didn't get into too much detail that it might have been completely gone out of treatments such as chemotherapy and radiation, as common leukemia treatments are. And it decided to resurface, and it appears to be. It appeared that it would be affecting him moving forward as an in-ring performer. And he really opened up this past week. I don't doubt that what he said was from the heart. Nothing was scripted for him. He was just given a platform to go out there and speak his mind. And if you caught the part about him owing an apology and trying to be this fighting champion ever since he won the title from Brock Lesnar, at that point, I think, well, that's not your fault at all. Not, I wouldn't even say it by a little bit. That's just what creative has been doing, and basically painted into a corner not only the Universal Champion, but also the Intercontinental Champion in these ongoing angles with 6-man tags with Braun Strowman, McIntyre, and Ziggler, and all leading to Crown Jewel, which I'll speak to about in a moment here. There are a number of reports that no one in WWE other than the higher-ups, obviously the inner circle, such as Vince McMahon, Triple H, Stephanie, Brian Gewirtz, maybe even Kevin Dunn, but very, very few, less than a dozen, from my understanding, were aware of what was happening. And the rest of the roster, the superstars, the crew, no one knew what Roman Reigns was going to say. And in his speech, because of this, he had to relinquish the Universal Championship, which was supposed to be defended at Crown Jewel in a triple threat match versus Brock Lesnar and Braun Strowman. Those changes obviously were made on the fly, where the belt is currently vacant. And not that it matters much, but the triple threat match has now been turned to a one-on-one match, and we are guaranteed to see a new Universal Champion at Crown Jewel next weekend. But the focus here for the moment, at least in this part of my report here, is Roman Reigns. The man's going to take some time off to not only spend time with his family, but also battle this unfortunate disease that really is a cancer to your bloodstream. And it affects your blood. And I don't know if how do they say it? The bone marrow will be necessary. I would assume, just by gatherings I put together looking up exactly what leukemia is, and usually it can be, excuse me, it can be reduced or fought off like he did previously with chemotherapy and radiation treatment. I didn't get too far in my research as far as having to battle it a second time. And it sucks. It really sucks on so many levels. And I personally could not help but, some might consider this a little bit selfish, but I couldn't help but to think about what I went through earlier in the year, specifically on Martin Luther King Day. Just happened to be the same day that I go into a doctor's office specifically for MRIs, and this was after I was given X-rays, and that something was going on in my lungs, my chest cavity area, and no one could have confirmed anything for maybe the first couple of weeks. But when I went back for the results of the X-ray, the doctor there flat out told me, you may have cancer, lymphoma to be exact. Something you don't want to hear on an early Monday morning. So obviously you need confirmation. You would need a second opinion, hence the MRI. And again, they found something there, only this time they weren't sure. But keeping in mind what I've been told a day or so earlier or previously, what are the odds of not being what it might be? In this case, lymphoma. And I was in and out of cancer centers out here in the Tampa area. I even went to one of the offices that would treat Tampa Bay Buccaneer players. And there was another office that's right across Raymond James Stadium. And I believe also players would be treated there as well. And we did all the initial tests. As far as my condition at the time, I just had short breaths and become very fatigued because of it. And nothing else really. There wasn't a change in me as far as dieting or any other obvious appearances. And I just went on with life. I was attending school at the time, and when the news broke, I went home to my family and told them. Of course, the waterworks came out, and by the end of the day, I made the choice, like, you know what, I'm not going to let this stop me. Though I was late on one project for the school, but thankfully those at CSB were very understanding and gave me the time to complete everything I needed to do in order to graduate. So graduation came and went officially, but I wasn't given my my diploma, for instance. But I was handed a very nice, touching note from the staff members at CSB, and it was very, very nice of them to do, and still hold a very warm place in my heart because of it. And eventually I did graduate, maybe 2 weeks later after the fact. And around the same time, after having a biopsy performed on me, which is not pleasant, especially when you're awake for this thing, and you're watching this doctor basically power drive a foot-long needle in and out of your chest area, not poking me like a voodoo doll, but they calculated a specific spot. They took a Sharpie and marked an X on my chest and started basically drilling for oil. So the results wouldn't be back for another week. So there goes some more time to pass. And I wasn't given any medication. I wasn't told to change anything in my lifestyle. I stopped going to the gym for a while because I didn't want to irritate the, not the injury, but that part of the body, my chest area, if I'm lifting weights off the bench and stuff like that, and then I didn't want to aggravate it anymore. So I finally get the call from my primary doctor to come into the office. And he's such a wonderful guy. I mean, he's so humble and down to earth, really shows loving concern for all of his patients. And he was just as upset as we all were when we first met about what may or may not be going on. So he receives the results from the biopsy, and everything came back negative. It was benign, and he was already speculating even before the biopsy was performed that he couldn't find or figure out any other symptoms or rationale. If this really is lymphoma, then you're not going through this or that. This is not happening, but you still have an obvious pain in your chest, not like George Lopez would normally have, but but it just didn't make sense. So finally, the decision was made to do a biopsy, and it came back, and everything was negative. So it wasn't cancer. It wasn't lymphoma. I don't consider myself a cancer survivor because I never had it to begin with. It was just a misdiagnosis on the part of the very first doctor that told me after the fact, which I'm not too fond of right now. Had he done further research or investigations on his part, but it is what it is. So coming full circle here to hearing the story of Roman Reigns, and he's been through it before. I can't say that I went through it at all, other than the hearing the unfortunate news of the possibility of it. Now, he's gone through it twice, and there's no time period of when he will return. He made it clear that what he said was not a retirement speech, which clearly it wasn't. This is when the audience started chanting, "Thank you, Roman." And I'm thinking, he's not retiring, guys. He's not calling it quits. He never said that. But I get the gesture, and it was a nice one. But at the same time, it's almost saying hypocritical could be a little harsh right now, but all things considered. But of course, when Roman Reigns came out in what's categorized as his street clothes, at least I knew something was different. Not that something was wrong, but it's like, okay, this is different. Never seen him do that before, even to cut a promo. And you heard the boos. You heard the Roman Reigns sucks chants vaguely, but I think the pro-Roman crowd was heard more and more loudly than the haters in this case. So once, and even during his first few words, they were still booing him and you suck or whatever. But once he dropped that bombshell and said the word leukemia, the arena went silent. And all those non-Roman Reigns fans joined in with the actual Roman Reigns fans. And for what it's worth, he became a full-fledged babyface. And I said this in a private chat where, whenever Roman Reigns comes back, and unfortunately he'll miss more than likely WrestleMania, that he's going to be the biggest babyface in the company. And it's unfortunate that it took this to happen to him for everyone, as far as the fans go, to accept him. The same fans, like myself, I'll admit, I never came on here and said that Roman Reigns sucks. He doesn't deserve to be where he is. There's someone always better than that. Blah blah blah. It opens a whole different argument, conversation about the lack of talent being pushed. Who has most dependence, reliance, or confidence in X superstar, whether it's Finn Balor or well, Bobby Lashley, that didn't work out, but to be that new top babyface in a company, or at least on the Raw brand. My only grief about the whole Roman Reigns project, if you will, is similar to John Cena, where he began being resented. He was just basically being crammed down our throats and being forced to get behind him when it was clear, painfully clear that, like, well, as much as you say we listen to our audience, we think your intelligence are being insulted and blah blah blah. Clearly, they have been. To a point, maybe. Cena, thankfully, is all but wind down and makes his appearances here and there. He's into movies. He's into co-hosting NBC morning shows. Fine, hey, the man's living his life. He's staying busy, and probably above all and most importantly, he's making money. Now, if that's his MO, just to make money and screw everything else, then he's not the only one in the world that thinks that. Everything's expensive. All the bills are not going to pay themselves. Not to mention living a luxurious lifestyle, to put it, or to use a better term here. But he's happy, and Roman Reigns has been doing the same thing, or similarly, where the one main difference is Roman has a family. He has a wife and children to take care of. And again, the bills aren't going to pay themselves. It's just, when everyone got behind The Rock, they didn't look at him as like, oh, finally there's a Samoan superstar on top, and he's entertaining. He's one of the number one guys. He's out there now making movies and this and that. A lot of fans failed to see that Rock is half Samoan, half black, and it's like, no, Rock is more black than he is Samoan, which I've heard and read some of those comments like that years ago, and it's like, how naive can you be? Now, Roman Reigns legit could be probably since High Chief Peter Maivia. Throw in there the Superfly Jimmy Snuka, who was never world champion in the WWF, but Roman Reigns might be the number one Samoan descent pro wrestler ever. But for reasons besides the ones I mentioned, he wasn't always accepted. I think the Shield reunion 3.0, after it failed a year ago because of injuries on everybody, basically, it came back, and it did help Roman a little bit, just to get the cheers off from Ambrose and Rollins and pass them on a little bit to Reigns. It worked to a point, but again, the fans saw through it, and we're still resenting this guy because you're forcing us to like him. You tried it again previously when the Shield got back together. This time around SummerSlam, same thing. Or after SummerSlam, same thing. So as much as the old cliche goes from Vince McMahon saying, we think we're tired of your intelligence being insulted. Well, you're still doing it. We see through just about everything you throw at us, and forcing something that, to be honest, the majority of your fan base is not going to accept. I was like, nah, they'll learn to live with it. Well, not everybody. But if what matters that comes across television is more important, and there are more cheers than there are boos. So yeah, give it more time. Well, it's been 4 or 5 years now. The man main event at WrestleMania 4 years in a row, and didn't get exactly what we're assuming you were expecting, and that is just 100% cheers from the audience. So the irony here is the man is sick, now battling a disease that came back, and all I can say is I hope that he kicks his ass again. And when the announcement is made of when or where Roman Reigns will make his return, he'll probably be as big, if not bigger, than Triple H's 2002 return in Madison Square Garden from his quad injury. That took about 8 months of his career, and came back literally and figuratively bigger than ever. Speaking of which, the 49ers, the Staples Center in Los Angeles, and Madison Square Garden, they've all showed their supports and shown tributes to Roman Reigns. Media outlets, newspapers, and of course all over social media expressed their get well soon comments and hashtags. And it was very powerful. I mean, you really have to be, I guess, well known in pop culture to have an arena as famous and as long lasting as Madison Square Garden to not only put your picture or your image and there's on the screen on the outside of the building, and have a message there to get well soon, Roman Reigns, from all of us here at Madison Square Garden. You haven't made your return yet, and you already made it bigger than you already were. Other franchises, other companies, industries, they've all reached out and expressed their thoughts and condolences to Roman Reigns to get well soon and come back from this. And you know what? I'm going to chime in myself. To Roman Reigns or any immediate family or personal friend of his, to get well soon, to come back from this better than ever. And just know there's going to be a huge, warm reception for you, and a well-deserved one when you return, when and wherever it is going to be on WWE television, or maybe even a pay-per-view. We will see you again and become that fighting champion that you promised us to be. And of course, fight all injustices as the big dog. The other big story that's been going around is this whole controversy behind Crown Jewel. Is it going to happen? Is it going to be canceled, postponed, what have you? Well, there was no secret about it that after the news broke that the Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi has been murdered, and after flip-flopping with authorities, the Saudis that is, as far as what really happened, there was a struggle, or he was shot, he was strangled, he was bone-sawed to death. The story keeps changing, but they eventually admitted it that, yeah, he died inside the consulate in Istanbul, Turkey, the Saudi consulate. So as of this past Thursday, we were expecting news to come on Wednesday, but I guess they wanted to be sure that everything was in order, and the statement that was released by WWE will be to the point. And Crown Jewel will continue as scheduled in Saudi Arabia next week. According to the statement in the third quarter's earnings report, the WWE issued the following statement. And it goes, WWE has operated in the Middle East for nearly 20 years and has developed a sizable and dedicated fan base. Considering the heinous crime committed at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, the company faced a very difficult decision as it relates to its event scheduled for November 2nd in Saudi Arabia. Like other U.S.-based companies who plan to continue operations in Saudi Arabia, the company has decided to uphold its contractual obligations to the General Sports Authority and stage the event. Full year 2018 guidance is predicted on the staging on the event as scheduled. Tickets for the event were previously scheduled to go on sale last week, but the on-sale date was postponed without a reason announced. I could have sworn that came from WWE's, but anyway, the statement concludes with the WWE website has the event still confirmed for next Friday afternoon, starting at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, but mentions of Saudi Arabia have not been added to the match preview at the time of this writing. So they're still playing it safe. And it's true that there have been a number of companies that have decided to keep in business with Saudi Arabia, while others have clearly cut all ties. And I personally had a feeling more because of contracts that were signed, and maybe, even though it's not mentioned here, but one has to speculate, they're also avoiding any potential lawsuits because it's a 10-year, multi-year event deal. And you'll be in breach of contract. And you know what? That would really suck. But you know what? This decision, after it was announced, it really started showing signs of, well, it looks like you might have made the wrong one. For example, 4 weeks ago, WWE stock had been well over $91 a share. Now, after falling over $1 billion in market capitalization over the past month, it sits only at $75 a share. This week, of nearly $2 loss comes after the company's third quarter financial report, and the news of that WWE Crown Jewel will be staying in Saudi Arabia as originally planned. Some stockholders thought the company would move the pay-per-view event after the Saudi government admitted to killing an American journalist, but obviously this did not happen, and the stock hit a recent low of $73 a share this week, but rebounded up to $75.68 before trading closed. I believe this was Thursday, after the announcement was made. I didn't check matter of fact, I didn't check today's stock. I don't really follow this, but since this was in relations to WWE, I thought it would share it. So the stock closed at $77.37. This would be on Wednesday, by the way. So it's down slightly over 2%. Before the Crown Jewel announcement made Thursday morning, stock had climbed over $79, but it clearly didn't maintain that momentum. And if you do the math, the company has lost over $1.5 billion in the market capitalization in the past month. While that is never good news, the $77 that the stock currently sits on, again, as of this Friday morning, it is still far from higher than where it stood in the beginning of the year. WWE is still looking at a huge gain in 2018 as its current 52-week low sits at $21.22. Anyone thinking of cashing out about now? and that's something else that may have influenced the decision to stay in Saudi Arabia, is they are a publicly traded company and they don't want to disappoint one or two certain stockholders. As hell, they probably don't want to. Those said stockholders could be with WWE or working in the WWE. And cashing out now, depending how many shares you hold or own, and at $77 as of this morning a share. Well, like this statement says, you can do the math yourself and maybe you consider to cash out. In relations to Crown Jewel, Robbie Fox at Robbie Barstool on Mondays, this past Monday before Raw even went on the air, this is just to piggyback off the Roman Reigns story, that I was just told Roman Reigns is currently injured and that Cena and Bryan are refusing, quote unquote, to work the show being Crown Jewel. And Many on the current WWE roster have expressed concern with going as well. But obviously not all of them have the power like Cena Bryan. This all coming from Robbie Fox at Robbie Barstool on Twitter. As of now, WWE has not made any announcement or any changes to Crown Jewel. Their latest statement said that the company was continuing to monitor the situation in Saudi Arabia. But again, this was this past Monday from Robbie Fox. John Cena will reportedly not be on the Crown Jewel card when the event takes place in Saudi Arabia on November 2nd. But according to John Polak of Post Wrestling on his Rewind a War recap, Dave Meltzer of Pro Wrestling Insider, Pro Wrestling Observer, on the newest Observer Radio endorsed Polak's report. This also further solidates the initial report made by Robbie Fox of Barstool Sports that Cena wasn't going to work on the show and that Daniel Bryan is reportedly refusing to work the event as well. So neither Polak or Meltzer had any updates on Bryan as of earlier in the week, even by the announcement made by WWE to keep the show going. And John Cena is off of Crown Jewel, and according to Polak, the WWE creative team has a replacement in mind. Cena recently came under scrutiny by the media on John Oliver's Last Week Tonight show, since he cut a pro-Saudi promo during WWE's previous trip at the Greatest Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Well, it's believed that that's also part of the contractual agreement that you got to say good things about us, make video packages and support Saudi Arabia kind of thing. It's never been confirmed, but that's the argument here, that it was part of the deal. While neither can confirm nor deny that superstars were refusing to work the show, the response said that the company maintains an open line of communication with all of the performers and will address each situation accordingly. There's currently no update on Daniel Bryan's situation, who is currently scheduled to wrestle AJ Styles for the WWE Championship at Crown Jewel. So I'm sure many of you have heard, I know I have, but just stated here, there's no confirmation. Then again, there's no denial that besides Cena or Bryan, that there were other superstars that are scheduled to appear on Crown Jewel, have expressed concern and maybe made decisions of not going. So if this is true, for the sake of argument, and I'm always standing by my I'll believe it when I see it position. So let's say, and I hate to use this terminology or description, but let's say mid-card wrestlers have decided not to go. They band together, say, hey guys, the situation is getting very hairy and we don't know what's going to be said about this as an end result, or how or where it would affect our show, the Crown Jewel show, altogether. And as news broke and it got worse and worse as far as the condition of the journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, that maybe a decision was made, but realizing that the voice won't be loud enough and they needed a top name or locker room leader, if you will, to support their calling, approached one or the other, John Cena or Daniel Bryan, and said, listen, this is our concerns. We want to express them, but they may or may not take us seriously enough, despite this open door policy of communication. What do you think? And can you support us or be our voice to the higher ups in WWE? I'm thinking something like that happened. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. I'll own up to it later on. But could it really be that far from the truth? I mean, we've known of mid-card superstars that try to get themselves over. Let's say, for example, Zack Ryder, only to be shut down because he got himself over during the whole internet thing. Like he was what was it called? The social media's champion or something like that. He had a custom-made championship belt. I think maybe made a TV appearance once on live television, but definitely made a lot of backstage appearances and would appear also on exclusive interviews with him on Facebook. He had his own, well, he does have his own YouTube channel. He definitely appeared all over the place there. Excuse me. Sip of water. But who's to say that there isn't any concern at all? But as of right now, the show goes on, and it's expected to still make the airways on their network next week. Speaking of which, the Orlando Sentinel had a nice little chat with Hulk Hogan for his upcoming NWO 2 Sweet reunion tour at his retail store, Hogan's what's it called? Hogan's Beach House, or Hogan's. Let's go with Hogan's Beach House, because he has a small second smaller retail store out in Clearwater. So I'm probably confusing the names. But anyway, Hogan was asked about the Saudi Arabia situation and in relations with WWE. Now, there was also rumored of Hulk Hogan possibly making an appearance at Crown Jewel. Hell, one of the Saudi government officials on their Twitter page put up a picture of Hulk Hogan about a month ago, speculating that Hogan will make an appearance. And later on, the sports authority, the General Sports Authority of Saudi Arabia, did something similar on social media. Didn't catch too much eyes on the stateside, but the very few that did, that just know where and how to look on social media, came to this speculation like, well, is Hogan going to appear at Crown Jewel? So with the Orlando Sentinel, Hogan sat down, as far as this particular topic, said, there are a lot of plans in the works, Hogan said. I'm looking forward to going to Saudi Arabia with the WWE. Looking forward to WrestleMania, but yeah, we're moving forward at a rapid pace. It's exciting to have this opportunity again after all these years where I was there and gone. Time out. I don't know exactly when the deal was first made between the WWE and Saudi Arabia. Hogan was reinstated, at least back into the website of the Hall of Fame and the Hall of Fame itself, about 3 months ago now. By then, we've already had the greatest Royal Rumble. And despite the Saudi Prince making suggestions of a couple of wrestlers that are no longer with us, one being Yokozuna, the other being the Ultimate Warrior, maybe Saudi Prince also mentioned Hulk Hogan. Whether he was aware of the situation with him at the time, Hogan that is, of his legal battles and his unfortunate tirade and his trial against Gawker. Did the Saudi Prince say, I want Hulk Hogan to be on the show as well? And or you know what? Hey, pal, Hogan's suspended from the Hall of Fame because of this and that. Oh, yeah? Here's a suitcase full of money that says he's not. I get your drift, pal. We'll work on that right away. Something like that. But the timing does fit, doesn't it? I mean, out of nowhere. And we were all hoping that the day will come. But like, really? It's barely been 2 years. And not all of the, arguments wind down. Because, nowadays, whenever Hogan's name is brought up, it's always going to be attached to that incident that he was involved with, the incident that he created himself, really. I mean, not necessarily the being recorded without his consent part, but what he said. So I'm under this impression that I didn't read this anywhere. This is my assumption. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And unlike some reporters that stick to their guns, like, no, this is what I heard, this is what I'm assuming, or whatever, and they're proven wrong after the fact. They never apologize. But you know what? I've come off a different boat, and my studies in media have shown me, like, hey, listen, either you had a source or not, or from the evidence or what you've read and what you've seen can make you come to a assumption or even a conclusion, there's a chance you might be wrong. And you know what? There's a chance of that here now with me. But for the time being, until this is either broken, the story is shared, behind the scenes stories are shared in the book or in another upcoming DVD release or whatever, I'm going to stick with this. And that the Saudi prince has something to do with Hogan returning much sooner than expected. And it's a good chance of Hogan appearing at Crown Jewel next week. And yay, I guess. Not the time and place I would have done it. Maybe around this time of year was the plan to reinstate Hogan and have him re-debut on WWE television. Could you have hold off to WrestleMania? Or at least another major pay-per-view on the calendar? The next one would be Survivor Series. One after that would be the Royal Rumble. And many consider the road to WrestleMania starts at the Royal Rumble. Well, there you go. Have Hogan be that crossing guard for that road, and he appears there in whatever angle you have in mind. And speaking of which, because of the Roman Reigns departure temporarily, and they obviously changed to the main event, or one of the main events for Crown Jewel, Brock Lesnar taking on Braun Strowman now one-on-one for the vacant Universal title. A lot of plans would change moving forward. And it showed, which I'll get to in a little bit, covering this week in highlights from WWE TV, a lot of changes as far as going to WrestleMania goes. And curious to see how this one works out. I mean, this is not a CM Punk situation where he walked out and changes had to be made on the fly for the better at WrestleMania 30 that year. But this is a little different. It's more stretched out in time, and have to wait and see to find out what happens. And I was gonna mention this as well, part of my Roman Reigns story, but I think I covered everything that needed to be covered. But at the same time, it was announced that Samu, former head shrinker, I believe it was the day after or the 2 days after Roman Reigns' announcement, but Samu also announced that he's been diagnosed with cancer as well. Samu released a statement on his Facebook page. I want to take a minute to address the situation with myself and that of my family. I have recently posted, I am selling shirts on Awani Strong. These shirts have been for sale for many years, and in the light of the current situation that has struck myself and my family, I decided to change the shirts to various colors of cancer. My cousin's news, Roman Reigns, has struck the world, and we are devastated at this time. What many of you may or may not know is I am also dealing with a stage 4 liver cancer and currently waiting for God's grace to help me to get a transplant. I am an elder member of my family, and in no way am I or my family attempting to profit from any serious sickness. Instead, I want to use our name in order to help doctors and researchers find ways to cure this evil sickness. I do not endorse or will I ever endorse profit on the misfortune of others or myself or that of my family. I want all of my friends, family, and fans to know that we've always remained on Awani Strong, and these shirts will remain for sale, and we will be speaking with various cancer organizations on how we can help. Until you can stand in the shoes we stand in, let me try that again. Until you can stand in the shoes we stand in, you will never know the pain and struggle we endure daily. Respectfully, Samu Anawani. So, Yeah, the Awani family has seen as much tragedy, unfortunately, throughout the years as, say, the Hart family as much. And, it's, don't want to say it's part of life, but unfortunately, some of these results that cause a death before, knock on wood, that doesn't happen anytime soon again. But sometimes they've been caused of an illness or a disease that's either passed on or it's hereditary, and it's unfortunate. And whether or not the Awani family has a history of this, I'm not aware of, but still doesn't change the fact that there's a chance still to fight, and hopefully Samu and Roman Reigns can see the end of this and they can both live a long-lasting life after the fact. So I also want to express my thoughts and prayers to Samu himself, and hopefully I believe he has made an appearance in New York in a couple of weeks where I'm going to attend for a meet and greet. I don't think he's canceled it yet. I'm not sure. I haven't checked the website for that. But I'll ask to see how he's doing and go from there. So let's get into this week in WWE highlights. Let's start with Raw. After the emotional speech that opened up Monday Night Raw with Roman Reigns, Finn Balor defeated Bobby Lashley, who was ringside. Lio Rush was ringside in Bobby Lashley's corner. Everyone is trying to make heads or tails. Well, at least a lot of people are, with the whole Lio Rush project, I guess. If the plan is to have him be as obnoxious as possible, then you know what? It's working. I think he even lost breath, or he ran out of breath, or his throat dried up when he started chanting Lashley, Lashley over and over again during, before, and after commercials. But Finn Balor defeated Bobby Lashley here, and I will have a separate report on him in a little while. In her first TV match since returning to the WWE, Sasha Banks would lose to Ruby Riott. During a D-Generation X promo, Kane and Undertaker would interfere via the Titantron and display tombstones. Really, guys? In the light of what's happened in this match taking place at Crown Jewel, you really wanted to... So that saga continues. Paul Heyman would then come out to hype up the now one-on-one match for the vacant Universal title with Braun Strowman versus Brock Lesnar, only to have Strowman himself come out to confront Heyman, and that the Beast would get these hands, and from behind, Drew McIntyre would attack Braun Strowman after earlier in the night, McIntyre told Ziggler that he was going monster hunting and delivered a Claymore kick to the monster, Braun Strowman. After a attempt at another mini concert, Elias defeated Apollo Crews and then would try to have a redo of sorts on the stage, only to be interrupted this time by acting general manager Baron Corbin, indicating that he has something very important to say, even more important so than Elias's concert there. So Elias would try to continue to perform, only to have Corbin order his microphone and guitar to be cut off and to tell Elias to leave the staging area. So just as Baron Corbin was going to make this announcement, whatever it was going to be, Elias returns and swings for the fences as he breaks his guitar over Baron Corbin's back, thus having the very first turn of the night. Elias has now become a full-fledged babyface from all this, and you know what? It is about time. A contract signing took place between Ronda Rousey and Nikki Bella, along with Brie by her side, as Nikki took shots similarly to Ronda from the week before, but this time it sounded a little bit more personal. As Nikki pointed out, the times whenever Ronda lost the fight, and that her mother was disappointed and ashamed of her and of her losing, really tried to get under her skin, and Nikki would then sign her contract. only to slap Ronda right after. Ronda did not retaliate, only to have a smirk on her face, bend down to sign her contract, get back on the microphone and say, "I will end you," and just walks away, leaving that train of thought in Nikki Bella's head. It's like, what do you mean you're going to end me? If you go back and look at Nikki's face, what do you mean? We could end it now. No, wait, then I won't get my title shot. Well, Evolution takes place this Sunday, and I'll have the rundown later on. Ember Moon would win a fatal four-way match that lasted less than 2 minutes. Thanks for reminding us to exactly how we got to women's evolutions to begin with. But she defeated Nia Jax, Tamina, and Dana Brooke. And yeah, disappointed that the match didn't last a little while longer than this. No less than 5 minutes, but then again, no more than 10, because this is a fatal four-way, and those types of matches shouldn't really last that long, my opinion. We get a Lita versus Trish promo again, only this time it was backstage, and finally some interaction. Only this time, there was interaction before, but the cards were switched just a little bit because apparently Alexa Bliss was performing at a live event over the weekend and suffered a concussion. Hence why she was no-show this past week on Raw. So instead, taking her place was Alicia Fox, who just looked like a kaiju compared to Lita and Trish Stratus here. She just was so tall. And plus wearing those high heel boots probably added more to it. But yeah. And off camera, we see Mickie James running in and basically beating down Lita and Trish Stratus. They walk away only to try to come back and continue on the beatdown, but this time Lita and Trish will make a comeback and utter the words, "That's how we do it in the Attitude Era." It's like, okay. And wasn't Mickie part of that? I think she'll be aware of that statement, but anyway. And in the main event, we saw Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler defend their Raw Tag Team titles against Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns. Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. Sorry, it's the long hair. A match that was dedicated by the 2/3 of the Shield members for Roman Reigns, and they win. Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins would defeat McIntyre and Ziggler after Braun Strowman stormed down the ring and attacked Drew McIntyre behind the referee's back, and they would brawl into the audience and fresh out of sight. Back in the ring, Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins took full advantage of this and get the win and regain the Raw Tag Team titles. This led to yet another turn. I guess the trigger had to be pulled a little earlier. Whether this was going to happen at Crown Jewel, one will never know. But Dean Ambrose was standing in the middle of the ring holding one of the tag team titles. And excuse me, we see Seth Rollins getting all emotional as he was when he met with Roman Reigns on top of the rampway when he was trying to leave, and for the time being made one last Shield fist bump before they went to commercial. And you can clearly see Seth Rollins just bawling his eyes out. I mean, the waterworks were coming down. Excuse me. And definitely an emotional match towards the end, especially. And so Seth is all excited. He wants to celebrate. He's hugging Dean. He's patting him on the back, rubbing his shoulder and saying, "We did it. We did it for Roman." And Dean didn't give no signs here. He was just giving off his, lunatic fringe expression. And out of nowhere, kicked. He kind of missed, but he kicks Seth in the gut and delivers dirty deeds on top of the tag team and Intercontinental Championships that Seth was holding at the time. And the crowd again went silent. They tried. I'll give them this. The production truck did try to censor as many foul languages as they could. One or two got through. You heard a couple of F-bombs here and there, but they were able to cut off a lot of it. And you hear fans like, "Why, Dean? Why now? How could you do this to Roman?" and this and that. And what first might have been looked like, okay, was that an accident? But who delivers a DDT on you, drops you on the floor, and considers to be an accident? But the crowd went silent, almost shocked. And a moment later, you see Dean continuing to attack Seth, and the crowd again reacting. Like, you hear gasps of air, and I'm like, oh no. So they really capitalized on the emotion from earlier in the night. And I know a lot of people disagreed on that. It wasn't the right time and place. Honestly, with Crown Jewel coming up this close, and this Monday will be the go-home show, what other place would it be? Considering, had Roman Reigns not make his speech and walk away from the business for now, surrender the championship, leaving the remaining Shield members alone, and when would have been a good time? And I mentioned last week, more than one occasion, that the seeds were planted. It was just a matter of time. And I didn't expect it to be this soon. I thought it would have been after Crown Jewel, if the idea was to have some kind of miscue there during the triple threat match. But, plans change, as they say. And that's how they went off the air, as Dean Ambrose just removed his Shield shirt and would walk out himself through the crowd and faded to black. Over on SmackDown, the New Day challenged The Bar and Big Show to a 6-man match at Crown Jewel, which was accepted. And then we would have an impromptu match of Big Show versus Kofi Kingston that led to a Big Show victory via disqualification, as Big Show delivered 3 choke slams to Kofi, was about to go for a 4th, but Big E interfered. But here's the thing. Big E went, he got into the ring, sure, along with Xavier Woods, but the Bar, who were also ringside, intercepted them, and the referee called for the bell. I mean, it's not really interference. They didn't touch the other competitors, but Big Show got the win. He choke slams everybody for their troubles, and we have a 6-man tag match for Crown Jewel. In a rematch of last week, the Usos would defeat AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan once again. By the way, the Usos paid great tribute during the match here for Roman Reigns. Only this time it was copy and paste and switch it around, where AJ Styles would be the one who, quote unquote, accidentally hit Daniel Bryan and cost him a victory. And they were later on, after the match, would have a backstage interview. And Daniel all but basically accused AJ of being a liar, even though he never said the word. Made gestures of AJ Styles' nose growing and mocked him with a too sweet salute. AJ didn't take too kind of this, as he, are you calling me a liar? But they got a match together, and stirring the pot here a little bit into a face versus face match so far. It helps because history has shown it doesn't always work. I mean, there are rare exceptions. Face versus face for a title. I think the best one is WrestleMania 6, Warrior and Hogan, with the crowd was split down the middle. And at the end, Warrior got this tremendous ovation after defeating Hulk Hogan for the WWE Championship. And whether he truly didn't draw as a champion or just wasn't cutting it or whatever, again, things changed and plans were reorganized to have him drop the title at the Royal Rumble 91 to Sergeant Slaughter. But it worked. Either way, it worked. But point being, Warrior never got his title rematch ever since or ever again. They showed footage of Becky Lynch attacking Charlotte Flair from over the weekend at the Performance Center, where Charlotte Flair was speaking to the all-women Performance Center members, including Mia Yim and Shayna Baszler, among others, were there. Becky will walk in from the background and start shouting to not listen to Charlotte for advice, don't make any friends in the business kind of deal. And Charlotte was trying to maintain composure and not have this done right there and there. asking Becky to leave, but a brawl ensues, and the other members were trying to break. They could have tried a little harder to break them up, but it was almost as if Charlotte and Becky were literally made out of magma or lava, and every time someone tried to touch them, it's like they immediately take their hands away as if they just touched the frying pan still on the stove. It's like, oh no, they're literally too hot. You can't touch them. And adding more spice, if you will, to their last woman standing match at Evolution. We then get a disappointing end, possibly, to a rival between Rusev and Aiden English, as that match was only less than 2 minutes, as Aiden English had control of the match, looked to Lana, and Lana threw a shoe, thanks to the old days of Miss Elizabeth in WCW Nitro. So this distracted Aiden English, and Rusev took advantage, delivering what's it called, a sabaf kick or a super kick, as he calls it, and placed him in the accolade, and made Aiden English tap out for Rusev to get the win. It's just very disappointing. If this is the current call for this feud, I think they could have gone a little while longer in this match, similar to the Fatal 4-Way on Raw, because this is a personal one. And how many people do you know can settle feuds or differences in less than 2 minutes, unless you're a real badass and just can knock out people left and right with one punch? But it is what it is. We then had a Miz TV segment where Rey Mysterio was the special guest. Of course, Miz doing Miz things, not considering Mysterio one of the greatest of all time or the best of the world, going into Crown Jewel's World Cup. So this led into a smudge of sorts and into a match that started right after the commercial break, and Mysterio would have a victory over The Miz in a pretty good match, building a momentum heading into the tournament to determine the best in the world. And we were supposed to get what seemed to be a women's tag team match between Asuka and Naomi versus Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose, who I haven't seen much of on SmackDown recently, but looking good as always. Instead, we had interruptions from the Iconics, Lana, and Carmella in that order, all cutting promos discussing that they were going to win the Battle Royal at Evolution. And they all stormed the ring, and the 4 women that were already there for a tag match brawled with the other 4 women that stormed the ring. Then all of a sudden you see Zelina Vega come down and basically have this impromptu Battle Royal, even though nobody was thrown over the top rope. Or maybe one was, but at the end, when the dust settled, it was Asuka standing alone, as maybe predicting the future that she might win the Battle Royal at Evolution. Who knows? Shane McMahon cuts a promo putting over the World Cup tournament upcoming, and of course Crown Jewel. And once Shane made the announcement that to determine the best in the world, and there were started very vague chants of CM Punk, it got loud enough where Shane noticed, looked up to the crowd with his pucker face look. It's like, I don't believe he's in this tournament. Well, wasn't really that much of an insult. I mean, they were in Chicago a few weeks ago, and there were no chance at all there, especially making references to the best in the world and this and that. I mean, okay, Chicago, good one. So Newark, what happened? He started something that really didn't go anywhere, and he was just shut down immediately. So anyway, Shane introduces the main event, which was Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy, where, again, not that the match was bad, but I thought we saw the end of this feud back at Hell in a Cell, but I guess one final standoff as Jeff Hardy lost to Randy Orton, and if anything, I think that would have killed any and all momentum for Jeff Hardy going into the tournament. But, oh, it is what it is. I guess you got to have the heels and faces have the piece of the pie as well. But they go off the air with Randy Orton defeating Jeff Hardy, and SmackDown was in the books. We then go into 205 Live, which celebrated its 100th episode, believe it or not. No big noise about this one, but oh well. Mike Kanellis defeated Lince Dorado after Lince was checking on his fellow Lucha House Party members of Kalisto and Gran Metalik when Kanellis knocked him down from the outside of the ring. as Lindsay checked on them through the ropes. And Kanellis would then kick the top rope, making contact with Lindsay's head and roll him up for the win. Mustafa Ali defeated Hideo Itami in a Falls Count Anywhere match as Ali delivered a 450 splash onto Hideo through a table outside the ring, saying on the way down, "I've always respected you," and gets a 3 count. So now Mustafa Ali will take on Tony Nese next week on 205 Live to determine the number 1 contender for Buddy Murphy's Cruiserweight Championship. Over on NXT, we saw EC3 defeat Adam Cole, which was an awesome match. Cole went for his last shot, only for EC3 to counter into a roll-up and get the 3 count. Mia Yim will make her official NXT debut here, defeating Aaliyah after hitting her with Soul Food. Cassius Ohno defeated Justin Xavier after a back-to-back sentons before nearly decapitating him, and delivered a rolling elbow for the win, Cassius Ohno did. Afterwards, we see Nikki Cross emerge on the entrance ramp, or the entrance staging, by the way, and befuddled Ohno by laughing frantically and cryptically repeating, "He is coming." We still didn't know who he was at this point in time, but before the end of the night, the entire NXT universe would find out who she meant, which led to William Regal coming down, who was about to make an announcement for the upcoming NXT TakeOver War Games Championship match, only for Tommaso Ciampa, Velveteen Dream, and Lars Sullivan to come down and interrupt. A fight will break out, and then once again, Nikki Cross returns again, yelling that he's coming. At this point, Aleister Black, who William Regal had instructed security to keep out of the building until he spoke with him, Aleister would force his way into the ring, where Velveteen Dream and Tommaso Ciampa would escape the ring. But unfortunately, Lars Sullivan wasn't as lucky, as he received a black mass for his trouble. It looked devastating, by the way. And enraged, Aleister Black confronted William Regal to tell them, "Who is he? Where is he? Tell me who he is." And then from behind, you see Johnny Gargano slip in the ring and delivered a Dutch Destroyer. And then slightly utter the words, "I am right here." So it was Johnny Gargano who attacked Aleister Black in the parking lot about 2-3 months ago. Many speculated it could have been NXT champion Tommaso Ciampa. It was not. Many thought it was Sullivan, maybe even Velveteen Dream, all to gain an opportunity and advantage towards the NXT championship. But quite a twist here, yet in another turn this week, as Johnny Gargano has gone to the dark side. UFC parent company, Endeavor, will no longer be in business with the Saudi government, according to a report earlier this month by The Hollywood Reporter. The deal was expected to bring about $400 million invested into the company. However, now the deal, which would have seen the Saudi government gain anywhere from 5 to 10% portion of that, is being terminated due to the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Previously, Endeavor co-CEO Ari Emanuel told French reporters that the company was concerned about the deal. Emanuel will go on to say, "On the face of it, it's upsetting. While the company behind the UFC are recognizing how much of a tragedy and attack of freedom of speech the murder of Khashoggi is, Vince McMahon didn't do the same during this week's WWE financial call. When asked about the situation, he said, we're not going to talk, we're not going to talk a lot about that. It's very sensitive subject. Choosing to deflect rather than personally condemn such a crime is only something a coward would do. And that's exactly what WWE chose to do with money on the line here. This all coming from the Hollywood Reporter article. And if you're a Hollywood Reporter follower or subscriber, then you know here they weren't holding back any punches. They really let it happen, let it out, and let WWE have it here. It's unfortunate on many fronts, but what can one do about it? According to the latest issue of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Bobby Lashley isn't 100% as the Dominator is currently dealing with a separated shoulder. It said that the injury is currently causing him a lot of pain, but he's been able to work through it. While it's possible to grit these types of injuries out of a certain amount of time, they also make it difficult for talent to work out and maintain their physique. Despite that, Lashley is still quite menacing in the ring. It remains to be seen if WWE will give Lashley time off for the injury to heal, or if he just plans to have it recover while he continues to work. There are various grades of shoulder separations, and the most minor are healed in just a few weeks, while the most serious ones can require surgery. It's not known how badly Lashley's shoulder is damaged now, but working through it can't be helping things at all, and that's very true. I mean, if not off the road from live events, which does help, I understand still making TV appearances, but if you don't work, you don't get paid, is my understanding in WWE. So I'm sure Lashley's fully aware of that and rather suck it up and work through the pain. The Chris Jericho Cruise tickets are sold out. Jericho made an announcement himself on his Twitter account and thanked everybody who, quote, helped make this crazy dream come true. The cruise, which is officially named Chris Jericho's Rockin' Wrestling Rager at Sea, will begin on Saturday, October 27th, which is tomorrow, and will last until October 31st, Halloween, ironically, as it goes from Miami to the Bahamas. If you're hoping to get a ticket, you can call the Chris Jericho Cruise at 877-379-9174 to inquire about last-minute available tickets should any openings be available. Those who cannot attend can still watch some of the wrestling action as Fight and Honor Club will be streaming the event. Lana, or CJ Perry, had her Instagram account hacked. CJ Perry announced the news on her Twitter account. My Instagram has been hacked. Every message you are getting, post or IG story you are seeing in the last 2 hours is a hacker. If you got any of her Instagram messengers, you will see posts that were promoting a giveaway of 300 iPhone X and Apple Watch devices. Unfortunately and sadly, Lana was not becoming a Apple spokesperson and was not giving away any devices to any fans. This Sunday is WWE Evolution. The card is as follows, and I don't think there were many. I don't think there were too many changes made during the past few weeks, despite combining 2 single matches into a tag team match. But as of right now, this is how it stands in no particular order, and they only have 7 matches. I'm still asking, how long is the show supposed to be for? But for the Raw Women's Championship, Ronda Rousey will defend against Nikki Bella. Becky Lynch will defend her SmackDown Women's Championship against Charlotte Flair in a last women's standing match. Kairi Sane will defend her NXT Women's Championship in a rematch against Shayna Baszler. Io Shirai and Toni Storm will meet in the 2018 Mae Young Classic Finals to determine the new winner of this year's Classic Tournament. Trish Stratus and Lita, Hall of Famers, will team up to take on Alexa Bliss and Mickie James. And in a women's battle royal to determine where the winner will get a future women's championship match. And a who's who will be involved in this, including Molly Holly, Alundra Blaze, Tori Wilson, Asuka, among others. Basically, anyone that didn't get a match of their own will be thrown into this battle royal. And finally, just announced this past week in a 6-women tag team match, Sasha Banks teams up with Bayley and Natalya to take on all members of the Riot Squad of Liv Morgan, Sarah Logan, and Ruby Riott. And a bit of an update, as I mentioned earlier, about Alexa Bliss. This came from F4WOnline.com. Alexa Bliss reportedly suffered a concussion last weekend during a WWE live event. Bliss, who had been out of action for a while with an arm injury, returned on Friday in Bangor, Maine, and then also worked a match on Saturday in Hartford, teaming with Mickie James, only to lose to Nia Jax and Ronda Rousey. It was supposedly then that she suffered a concussion. She was subsequently pulled from WWE event in Boston on Sunday, with Tamina replacing her. However, during her appearance on Busted Open Radio, Mickie James confirmed that Alexa Bliss will indeed participate at the historic WWE Evolution event. Bliss's status at the show has been in doubt due to the concussion she suffered this past weekend, but it does appear indeed that Alexa Bliss will move forward in her match, in her tag team match, teaming up with Mickie James. And yeah, despite that, there were no announcements of any changes made. The WWE.com site is still promoting as such. And we move forward to Evolution this Sunday. And I will have the results, any backlash, and anything relation after the fact of said first ever WWE Women's Pay-Per-View. Hoping that will last more than 2 hours and, give them their just due. I know they've been getting a lot of it as of late, but my only nitpick about it, and the show hasn't even happened yet, why in the hell is Michael Cole part of the announce team? Why can't it all just be an all-women's announce team between Renee Young and Beth Phoenix, who have already been announced as part of the broadcast team? And I know McMahon, at least, or someone in production, has a hard-on for having a three-person announce team. I just don't understand. It's just too much. But that's just me. But despite that, I'm going to try to listen in. Many of you know I don't really watch too much Raw, at least, and SmackDown's getting there as well, where I watch these shows on mute because the commentary just sucks. But I'll try my best here. But the moment Cole says something ridiculous or just ridiculous, yeah, I'm pushing that mute button and watch it as is. If anything, I'll probably provide my own commentary. So with that said, thank you for joining me here on the JM Report. I will return next week with all this week news in WWE and also from around the world in pro wrestling. Also, a special announcement to make. Tomorrow, I will have an exclusive interview with the one and only Georgia Smith, the daughter of the late, great WWE legend Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog. She has granted me time, and we will sit here in the CSB studios, and we will have a nice little chat. And that conversation will be available on my YouTube channel late Saturday afternoon. So stay tuned to that. And it should go really well. I'm really excited to look forward to it on a new segment that I'm coming out with, Talking with JM. And she will be on my very first episode. So good times ahead. So again, thank you for joining me here on the JM Report. As always, everyone, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy Evolution. And